You're listening to the Source News on 4EB Global Digital.
Hi, I'm your host, Daniel Brown, and welcome to the Source News. This evening's episode will explore current affairs issues surrounding digital culture throughout the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. But before we get into it, here's the news bulletin.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm Monique Meter, and together with Kara Gould, we'll bring you this afternoon's news. Firstly, to state news. Thousands of prisoners across Queensland will be given the right to vote in the October state election for the first time in the state's history. Prisoners serving less than a 3-year sentence will retain their right to vote in federal elections and will now be given the right to participate in future state elections as well. Prior to legislative changes that came into effect in January this year, inmates were barred from participating in local or state government elections. And in other news, a massive data breach by a Chinese company with links to Beijing's military and intelligence networks has been revealed, leaking the details of thousands of Australians. The database of 2.4 million people, including 35,000 Australians, has been leaked, raising further questions about the scope of China's surveillance and intelligence operations. Leaked details include names, dates of birth, information from confidential bank records, job applications, and psychological profiles.
Heading on to outer space. Astronomers have discovered phosphine gas in Venus's atmosphere, hinting at the possibility of life on the planet, or an unknown geological or chemical process. Phosphine is a short-lived, colourless, flammable, and toxic gas that occurs naturally on Earth from the breakdown of organic matter through microbes that thrive in the absence of oxygen. The discovery, published in the journal Nature's Astronomy, not only has implications for Venus, but the search for life beyond our solar system. Moving back to Australia now. Victorian healthcare authorities are becoming confident the state will be able to ease coronavirus restrictions early in the upcoming weeks. Health authorities have announced the lowest case numbers in almost 12 weeks, recording only 35 cases and 7 deaths yesterday. Chief Health Officer Professor Brett Stutton says Melbourne's 14-day average, which is currently 54, could be as low as 20 by the end of next week.
And to local news. The death of a 19-year-old former Kedron State High School student, Gerum McConnon, was the result of a violent clash between two groups at O'Callaghan Park in Zillmere on Sunday night. A witness who spoke to the Courier Mail says McConnon was not involved in group rivalries and was relaxing with friends when the attack occurred. President of the Queensland African Communities Council told SBS News that the community is distraught by the tragic incident and are assisting Queensland Police with their inquiries. And in other news, marine experts around Australia are considering how to herd 2 humpback whales out of Kakadoo's East Alligator River after becoming lost on their annual migration. Scientists believe muddy conditions may have confused the whales, who navigate using sight and sound. The Northern Territory team of scientists in charge of coaxing the whales out hope they can corral the humpbacks using physical or acoustic deterrence techniques. This is the first time in recorded history humpbacks have been seen in the Kakadu, which is home to many saltwater crocodiles.
Moving to Europe now. An estimated 110 square kilometres of ice has broken off Greenland's ice cap in the far northeast Arctic. Scientists say the event is evidence of rapid climate change. The National Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland professor, Jason Box, told the ABC people should be concerned about what appears to be a disintegration at the Arctic's largest remaining ice shelf. In national news, a senior officer with the Victorian Police was suspended last night following a violent arrest of a 32-year-old man on Sunday night. Social media videos show the man being struck by a police vehicle and kicked in the head while he was on the ground. Witnesses speaking to 9 News say the man was running, but fell when the police were unduly aggressive.
And in science and medicine, a small study in the UK aims to find out if inhaling the coronavirus vaccine will work better than injecting it. Delivering influenza vaccines via nasal spray helps protect people against the flu as well as limiting transmission of the disease. The same is hoped for COVID-19. Leading scientist Dr. Chris Chu says that it is critical to explore whether targeting the airways directly can provide a more effective response. And in sport, in AFL, Collingwood beat the Gold Coast Suns by 22 points at the Gabba last night, securing their spot in the finals regardless of the result in their final round against ladder leaders Port Adelaide on Monday night. And Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton is under investigation by the FIA for a potential rule breach after wearing a t-shirt which read, "Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor," before and after Sunday's Tuscan Grand Prix. And in men's tennis, world number one Novak Djokovic has spoken to media in Rome, admitting he has a history of on-court outbursts after being defaulted from a US Open match in New York last week for striking a line judge with a ball. That's all for sport today. Karis, how's the weather looking this afternoon?
It is currently mostly sunny and 21 degrees in Brisbane right now, with a 20% chance of rain and a low of 9 expected as we move into the evening.
In response to lockdowns throughout the coronavirus pandemic, increased reliance on the internet has reshaped the way we approach our social interactions, jobs, and studies. The benefits of the growing online world are countless. The internet allows us to stay in touch with loved ones, continue working or studying from home, and gives us access to a wealth of information with the click of a button. But is there a cost to all this? Reporter Jade Macbeth takes a look.
Many of us are feeling grateful for the internet's ability to keep us in touch and to keep us informed during a time of unprecedented social isolation and uncertainty. Our capacity to exist online has allowed many of us to keep working, to keep studying, and to maintain social relationships in a different way. But Professor Yolanda Yetton from the University of Queensland School of Psychology says there are certain elements of our social interactions that we haven't been able to achieve online.
On the one hand, it's actually clear in a workplace, you can actually do an awful lot through Zoom, and it works fairly okay. But I do believe, though, that there is very often a bit of a psychological cost to it.
While the internet has allowed us to stay in touch, Professor Yetton says our online methods haven't been able to recreate the more informal aspects of our usual communication.
There's so many micro thoughts that you may have on a daily basis, and normally we just quickly check in with someone, and we don't have that anymore. You don't Zoom someone just because you just have one little question to ask for them. So there are ways, I guess, that we have to also start thinking about being online, but then much more informal ways than we're doing right now.
Professor Yetton says our inability to recreate normal social interactions online comes at a cost to our mental health.
Certainly, we know from our own data that social isolation has increased. Feelings of loneliness have increased dramatically. As soon as we actually start to be cut off from contact with others, just as we would normally do, that mental health will go down.
Lecturer in Organisational Psychology at Griffith University's School of Applied Psychology, Dr. Keris Chan, says despite issues surrounding mental health and social isolation, many of us are starting to enjoy the flexibility of working from home.
We are sort of just on the brink of realizing some of the benefits of remote working. If we were to go back right now, I think there will be a period of adjustment, and there might also be some reluctance by some people who have now realized that, complete remote working is possible. So other than the sort of behavioral adjustments, I would think that the sort of autonomy that you have given people with remote studying, online learning, and remote working, I think there would be a general reluctance to sort of go back to campus or to work from Monday to Friday.
Dr. Chan says despite this, one of the dangers of an increase in online activity is that many of us have not learned to set boundaries around our use of technology. She says there is not only a mental cost, but a physical one as well.
The sort of feeling that you have to check your social media platforms or maybe your emails without feeling that you're missing out on some important information. I think that has also driven long hours of usage. And at the same time, I think it's not just about the mental fatigue. It's also a physical fatigue because long hours that stretch through, 6 to 7 p.m., but you will normally knock off at 5 p.m. People at the end of the day, they do feel totally depleted in terms of their physical resources. And I mean, that also has a negative spillover effect, right? You probably exercise less, you go out less, you're not getting the sort of healthy dose of exercise or sunlight.
That was Jade Macbeth speaking with Dr. Keris Chan. The COVID-19 pandemic is forcing us to isolate ourselves at home, but that doesn't mean we are stopping our lives altogether. As our livelihoods move online, we're having to find new ways to connect. Fortunately, with modern technologies, most notably social media apps, people can continue to interact through multiple mediums in a variety of different ways during these tough times. Here's Karis Gould with the report.
In light of the pandemic, Australia has seen the number of people participating online rise, with 1 in every 3 people spending more time on social media in recent weeks. The popular social networking app House Party has seen 50 million new signups worldwide. That is 70 times above average. Graduating high school student Lincoln Dean explains how apps like House Party have continued to keep him positive as his life moves online.
So we did major schooling online, staying at home, self-isolating, all that. And more like online calls with friends in Discord or House Party or Skype to keep connected over the coronavirus period.
That's awesome. So did you find having access to apps like House Party helped you during this time?
Oh, definitely, because you feel more connected with your friends during that time. If you can't see them in person, you could see them online and still talk to them, look at them, make fun of them and all that kind of stuff. You had this connection that you felt with people in person online because of video.
Do you think having the social media helped with your sort of headspace during these last few months of isolation?
Oh, definitely, because I'm a very sociable person myself. When I'm alone, I go nuts. I can't do anything, but when I'm with people, I feel more alive and active and healthy as a person. So with this, being able to talk online and see people and just do it on my phone, lying in bed talking to people, it surely helped me with personal problems and just having a good social life online.
Aside from using social media to wind down and relax, many students across Australia have been using social media to keep them afloat as their studies move online. Griffith University student Emma Gervin says that university shifting into an online format has been a hindrance for her.
I mean, you go from engaging with people physically all day and having great discussions and, being on campus to in your room with a laptop, not really physically seeing anyone all day. So yes, it has hindered me in terms of social interaction.
Would you say that social media has taken a large part in your studies moving online?
Oh, definitely. Social media has played a huge role. I mean, with all of my studies being transferred online, and obviously with the ongoing pandemic, I found that I've been relying on social media for social interaction and I've really engaged with it a lot more.
So, what do you think has been the most helpful app to you throughout this time?
Probably Facebook Messenger. Messages really helped me in terms of staying connected with people. I've used the group chat and the video chat features quite a bit. They're super easy to use and all of my friends use Facebook Messenger, so that's probably the easiest way for us to stay connected.
Social networking platforms are also helping us to keep our most isolated members of the community closer during this time. 72-year-old widowed mother Marilyn Rastall is living alone during Melbourne's Stage 4 lockdown, but the power of social media was able to bring her some much-needed interaction.
My daughter lives in Tasmania, and this week she had home delivered a load of ingredients for me so that we could cook together online. She led me through all the instructions and the recipe. We baked our biscuits and we ate them together over WhatsApp. Absolutely wonderful to have this modern technology that brings us together when we can't be together.
Marilyn Rastel there, explaining how social media is keeping us connected throughout the pandemic. The coronavirus pandemic has taken a toll on many of our social lives, but it is singles that seem to be finding it especially hard. Although absolutely vital in stopping the spread of COVID-19, restrictions to social gatherings and the closing of social venues has made it almost impossible for people to seek out physical intimacy and companionship. According to data released throughout the pandemic, more people have been moving to dating apps as an alternative. Here's me, Daniel Brown, with the report. Online dating service company Match Group, owners of popular dating apps Tinder, Match.com, OkCupid, Hinge, and Plenty of Fish, recorded a 15% increase in new subscribers during the coronavirus pandemic. Match Group ended their third fiscal quarter with a total 10 million subscribers across their apps and an expected revenue of at least $600 million according to Refinitiv IBES data. The company has even launched video dating features to many of their dating apps to cater for safer connection between users during the ongoing pandemic. So why are people using dating apps more during the pandemic? 21-year-old Kate, who uses Hinge and Tinder, says she has somewhat been using online dating apps as a way of meeting people due to lack of socializing and negative feelings that have been exacerbated by the pandemic.
I use them to meet people and to get to know them, but with no real agenda. Like, not really trying to get into something serious, but I wasn't really against it either. I feel like I used them more because I felt lonely and isolated and just desperate for human interaction, but at other times I felt like I used them less because I felt like there was no point in getting to know anyone if I wasn't really able to meet up with them due to the COVID restrictions and in particular the social distancing.
34-year-old Alex, who has used Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble, says she used dating apps during the pandemic simply as a way of connecting to new people and to pass time.
It was probably some boredom. I just kind of wanted to talk to people because I miss going into work and socialising every day. I didn't feel particularly isolated or lonely. I really quite enjoyed the COVID experience, working from home. I lived by myself, so I enjoyed all that. I think I was more just, it was something that I could do besides working. It was mostly boredom, but I never really was like, oh, I wish I had someone. It was more just people to talk to.
27-year-old Kelly, who uses dating apps Tinder and Grindr, says he has been using dating apps during the pandemic as a way of coping with the lack of social interaction with the loss of his job.
The lack of interaction with other people, if it's face-to-face or if it's over the phone. Yes, it's the dating apps where people go on there for their own different reasons, but I guess what I've been using it more often is just to have a chat with someone, see how they're going, hopefully vice versa, they check in on me.
23-year-old Carla, who used to use Tinder, says she has avoided dating apps altogether during the pandemic for concerns it may encourage people to meet up and potentially spread the disease.
I just don't want to risk getting coronavirus, and I don't want to give it to anyone either. I'd feel horrible if I knew I had it and I went out and went to meet someone and I gave it to them, or they gave it to their family members or something. It'd be horrible.
Psychologist Sharon Lee Duff from Maple Street Psychology says the adverse effects the pandemic is having on people's mental health and behaviour is likely attracting them to dating apps for social gratification.
Basically, our brain is wired for us to build meaningful relationships with people. So when we find ourselves in a situation where we're suddenly unable to have that contact all the time, what happens is that tends to really increase those feelings of social isolation, and we do become lonely. And what ends up happening as far as mental health goes is we start to have an increase in those depressive symptoms because we need to be around people that's just the way our brain is wired. Also, people who seem to have trauma in their history, what's happening to them is they are experiencing a lot more anxiety. And I can see why people would be attracted to things like dating apps, because they may start to reach out in whatever ways that are accessible to them to be able to, reach out to other people.
That was psychologist Sharon Lee Duff explaining why singles may be drawn to dating apps during the ongoing pandemic. Video games have always had a poor reputation, often blamed for increased violence and society's supposed moral decline. The COVID climate we now live in, however, is seemingly changing this perception. Online gaming is now considered a form of social engagement that provides an escape from the tragic realities of COVID-19 and a place of solace for players seeking community and connection. Emma Gervin reports.
For Brisbane gamer Connor Brunges, online gaming has always been a source of solace in tough times.
Gaming has always been a constant in my life, and I guess many others' lives as well. And this has been highlighted, I guess, extremely through the isolation during COVID. It really brought together all of my friends, even family I have started playing games, even though they weren't into games before. So I think, gaming just brings a sense of community to the world where sometimes we're always so far apart.
Provisional psychologist Sophie Parks from Macquarie University says human contacts and connections sustain us both psychologically and socially.
According to self-determination theory, humans have three psychological needs: the need for competence, autonomy, and relatedness. During COVID-19, it has become more difficult to meet these needs. The climate of uncertainty has meant individuals lack a sense of control over their environment, and physical distancing has meant limited opportunities for social connection, which is vital for our psychosocial well-being. These unmet needs are especially problematic in the adolescent population, which thrive off peer relationships and also their need for independence and control over their life. Therefore, it is very likely that during this pandemic, individuals are turning more and more towards activities that meet their needs for social connection and personal control. Video games in particular are very good at meeting these needs, as they offer an opportunity to exert control over a virtual environment, which is lacking from their everyday life. Video games also allow for individuals to play with and speak to friends via online friend play. This helps them foster a sense of social connection at a time of physical distance. Therefore, during COVID, it is likely that as their needs for autonomy and relatedness are unmet in the real world and fulfilled in video games, the players will continue to engage in gaming.
Gaming culture during COVID-19 has disproven the historical narrative that video games promote antisocial, loner-type behaviour. People aren't playing alone, they are using games to come together.
It's funny that most of the time gamers are perceived as antisocial, introverted weirdos, but we really use gaming as a way of social interaction, which has really been important while all this pandemic's been going on, because we can't socially interact with people physically.
Online gaming is gaining support globally, with the industry rallying around Play Apart Together, an initiative organised by the World Health Organization and gaming companies recommending gaming as a healthy way to socialise and combat loneliness while social distancing at home.
It's good to see gaming get accepted as a way to socialise during these tough times during COVID that we're apart. Because I remember as a child being told so much that I need to get off my game because I needed to go see my friends in real life when I had friends on the game that I was playing with. So it's just good to see the world sort of accept gaming culture.
You can bet we didn't just take his word for it. We asked around.
When I think about what game got me through isolation, I probably have to say Star Citizen. Reason being is just because it's just such an open world, and it really just provides an escape to everything that's been going on recently.
The game that got me through isolation was Neo 2 because it let me release all my frustrations.
The game that got me through ISO would have to be Dirt 3. I like it because it is fast-paced and keeps my brain active. And it's just a good game to get locked into and can kill time with. So that's probably the game that got me through ISO.
Those were some Brisbane-based gamers sharing which games help them cope with isolation. Thank you all for tuning in to this evening's broadcast, exploring current affairs issues surrounding digital culture throughout the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Hoping you are all staying safe and well during these strange, challenging, and unpredictable times. I'm your host, Daniel Brown, signing off for the Source News. Goodbye for now.